Oh boy, the things I do for you people. It's so cold out here. It's not that cold, but it's colder than it was. So, I thought I would continue with yesterday's thread of talking about things and talk about what is mind in Buddhism.
Dad,
Yeah?
what is the mind? Is it just a system of impulses, or is it something tangible?
Relax. What is mind? No matter. What is matter? Never mind.
Thanks, Dad.
So, there you go with Homer Simpson's advice about mind, and I think it's a good place to start, actually. That's why I put this clip in, not just because it's funny. We usually divide the world into mind and matter. So, mind is on one side and matter is on another side. And one of the places that Dogen talks about the nature of mind, well, he talks about it in the thing I read to you yesterday. Mind itself is Buddha's, or mind itself is Buddha. Yeah, this mind here and now is Buddha, or the various ways that they translate that. He also talks about it in another chapter in Book 1 of Master Dogen's Shobo Genzo, Shin Fu Ka Toku. Mind cannot be grasped. The former. That's called the former because there are two versions of Shinfu Katoku. One is a little bit longer than the other, but they're both kind of the same. Nobody's really quite sure why he included two versions, or, well, they found two versions among his papers and things. One may be the draft of the lecture, and one may be the actual lecture that he gave. But let me read to you from Nishijima Roshi's introduction here. Shin means mind, Fu expresses negation, Ka expresses possibility, and Toku means to grasp. So Shin Fu Ka Toku means mind cannot be grasped. It is a quotation from the Diamond Sutra. On the basis of our common sense, we usually think that our mind can be grasped by our intellect. Grasped. It's a very hard word to say. And we are prone to think that our mind must exist somewhere substantially. This belief also extends into the sphere of philosophy. René Descartes, for example, started his philosophical thinking with the premise cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. The German idealists, for example, Kant, Fichte, von Schnelling, and Hegel, also based their philosophies on the existence of mind. But in Buddhism, we do not have confidence in the existence of mind. Buddhism is a philosophy of action, or a philosophy of the here and now. In that philosophy, mind cannot exist independently of the external world. In other words, Buddhism says that all existence is the instantaneous contact between mind and the external world. Therefore, it is difficult for us to grasp our mind independently of the external world. In short, Buddhist theory cannot support the belief in the independent existence of mind. In this chapter, Master Dogen preached that the mind cannot be grasped, explaining a famous story about a conversation between Master Tokuzan, Senkan, and an old woman selling rice cakes. And the story goes, let's see if I can do it from memory without looking at the book, that Master Tokuzan was in his former life, not in a past incarnation, but in his life before he became Master Tokuzan, he was a scholar and a master of the Diamond Sutra, and he supposedly knew everything about the Diamond Sutra. So he is going to give a lecture about the Diamond Sutra, and he runs into this old woman selling rice cakes. And the old woman says to him, who are you? And he says, I'm the master of the Diamond Sutra. I know everything there is to know about it. And she says, well, in the Diamond Sutra it says, mind of the past cannot be grasped, mind of the present cannot be grasped, mind of the future cannot be grasped. Which mind do you intend to refresh with these rice cakes? She's selling the rice cakes. Did I said that? I think I said that. And there's the expression in Chinese for having a snack concludes the word refresh the mind. That's just a linguistic idiom that we don't have in English. And Master Tokuzan, before he's Master Tokuzan, can't answer the question. So does he burn all these sutras and stuff? I forget. Anyway, I don't remember if he burns the sutras, and I just looked it up and I couldn't find the information in there. It might be in the other version of the story. But at any rate, he just gives up being a lecturer on the Diamond Sutra and becomes a Zen master. He goes into a temple, meditates as a monk, and gets enlightened and everything else, and he becomes a Zen master. So, this idea of mind cannot be grasped is the idea that there is no mind for you to grasp. Dogen says that mind itself cannot be grasped. That's one of the many ways he puts it. Now, in Buddhism, there are a ton of theories of mind, and Yogacara Buddhism is the best one to look at if you want theories of the mind. And I did a video about that several months ago. I think I did more than one video about that several months ago. If you want to look that up or look it up online, there's a whole string of things where the mind is divided into the six senses, and the sixth sense is cognition as a sense in Buddhism. So it's not the paranormal sixth sense. So seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, for want of a better word, are the six minds. And then there are 7, 8, I think there's not 3 others, Manas, something else, and Alaya Vijnana. It gets very complicated, but the point is that Dogen says weird things like mind is fences, walls, tiles, and pebbles, of which there's a bunch around here, and the sun, the moon, the stars, and the great earth. He says these kind of things all the time, and it was in the reading that I read to you yesterday. Those are expressions that say there is no distinction between mind and matter, and it's all a continuity. So mind in Buddhism doesn't mean a mind that's here right inside of us. It doesn't mean my mind as opposed to your mind. There's another story that he tells in the longer version of this chapter about a guy whose talent is that he can know the minds of others. You know, he's some kind of a psychic. And the Buddhist master goes and tests him. I forget which master. It probably doesn't matter. But he goes to test him, and he does these 3 tests, and the guy says, the psychic says, the master says, let's do this right, says, okay, tell me where I am now. And the psychic goes, well, you're the master of the great temple, why are you playing with a monkey on a bridge? And then he says, well, tell me where I am now. The master does, and says, well, you're the master of a great temple, why are you shopping for Christmas presents at Barnes & Noble? I don't know, something like that. And then the third time, he says, where am I now? And the psychic can't tell him, and he says, the master says, oh, you're just you don't know anything about others' minds, and blah, blah, blah. And the common way of interpreting that in Dogen's time, and probably even these days, is that the psychic knew where the guy was because that's what he was thinking about. He was thinking about playing with a monkey on a bridge, and he was thinking about shopping at Barnes and Nobles. I really don't know what the second one was. Something mundane. And then the third one, he entered samadhi, and then he couldn't be found. Dogen says that's wrong. He says that the psychic didn't know where the guy's mind was any of the 3 times. All he was seeing was the superficial, maybe he was seeing the superficial fluctuations on the very surface of the master's mind, what he was thinking about. But he didn't understand the true nature of mind, which is everywhere and everything. That's what mind is in Buddhism. Now, one of the sidelights that's interesting, I admit, but I think it gets a little bit too interesting sometimes for Western people, is the fact that the character used to express mind in old Buddhist stories is Shin. It's pronounced the same in Japanese and Chinese, but they spell it with an X when they're talking about Chinese, and they spell it with an SH like sensible people when they're talking about the Japanese pronunciation, but both comes out Shin. Anyhow, that is the same character for heart. For the physical heart that's in the center of your chest, that is also called Shin. And people get kind of like, oh, do they mean mind or do they mean heart? Well, if you look at it, what they mean is mind. It's pretty clear that it's analogous to what we mean as mind, but they tend to use the same word as heart. Probably one of the things that hangs us up as Westerners is we make this distinction between mind and heart. So mind is the rational thinking sort of, straight down the line kind of thing, and heart is the emotional center and all that stuff. They don't make that distinction in most of Asian philosophy. And people ask me this all the time. They'll say, well, we're supposed to do things about thinking, but what do we do about emotion? Thinking and emotion in the sort of Buddhist way of thinking are the same thing. Emotion is one type of thinking. Thinking may be one type of emotion. It's a little less emotional than emotion, but it's still just thinking. When thoughts kind of get up to a certain degree, they become emotions. So it's not really that there's a distinction of one or the other. I've been reading this funny book lately, and since I just read this chapter or chapterlet, all the chapters, such as they are so small that I don't know if they even could be called a chapter. They're usually like a page and a half. Anyway, called The Open Secret, and the author calls himself Wei Wu Wei, the way that is no way. So he was a long time before Bill and Ted, or was it Wayne's World who said that? Anyway, Wei No Way. But he's actually an Englishman, and there's this picture, and he published a bunch of books between 1958 and 1974, as you can read there. And these books are back in print, although they're a little bit hard to find. And I just kind of came across this reading about something else, and somebody I was reading about said Open Secret, good book by Wei Wu Wei. So I got it, and I looked at it, and it's good. It's a little old-fashioned, but the guy seems to know his stuff. He studied a lot of Asian philosophy at a time when it was really difficult to study these philosophies. There wasn't a lot of translations and things available, so he went to India and I think maybe China as well, and studied with some of the teachers there, including Ramana Maharshi, and he had some kind of insight, and he puts it in this book, and it's a nice book. I haven't got all the way through it, but I think it's got some good stuff, although, like I said, it's real, it's kind of that old-fashioned philosophical talk. Anyway, here's what he says in a chapter called Whose Mind? Next time you hear someone talking about his mind or yours, let us ask who there could possibly be to possess such an article. Huang Po in the 9th century in China and Sri Ramana Maharshi 11 centuries later both replied in the same words in their respective languages to a visitor who produced such a notion. Their words, ironical and full of humor, were just this: how many minds have you? So that's kind of related to what Dogen says in Mind Cannot Be Grasped, the idea that there is a mind that can grasp the mind. It's a weird thing, but if you think about it, that's what you are envisioning, and it makes no sense at all. In the Tun Huang cave, there was found a manuscript of a number of sayings of Bodhidharma recorded by his disciples. One of them runs as follows: what is the Buddha mind? And Bodhidharma's reply is, it is your only mind. When you apperceive it, apperceive is one of these words that he keeps using in this book, and it doesn't mean to not perceive. I'd never come across that word until I started reading this guy's book. It means to completely perceive, intuitively perceive, fully perceive. When you apperceive its immutability, it can be called Dharmakaya, the Buddha body, which is everything. It is not anything, so it may be called liberation. Its functioning is imperceptible, undisturbed by any object, so it may be called pure Tao, the way. Never born, it can never die, so it may be equated with nirvana. And this is Wei Wu Wei adding his commentary: it is not your mind, of course. You, all you could be, are what it is. So that's mind in Buddhism. Mind in Buddhism is a weird thing. It's not my thinking mind. It's not my opinions, my ideals, what I think I am, where I came from, my past history and all that thing we usually think of as mind. It is that strata of the universe which is not form, which is emptiness, it is emptiness because it cannot be described, but it's not emptiness in contrast with form. That's why we say form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That's mind in Buddhism. Mind in Buddhism is really weird, I think, is the... maybe that's what I'll title this video, but that's where it is. So I hope you enjoyed that. We can go on longer if you want. I can try. We'll see how it goes. I thank you for the donations you keep sending me by going to this URL and clicking on the Patreon and PayPal links there, or if you're on YouTube, the Patreon and PayPal links are below on the description in YouTube. That is my sole source of income these days, and I really thank those of you who are still contributing to it. If you're having big financial troubles or small financial troubles or any financial troubles, you don't donate to me, because I'm hanging in there. Things are okay, but I'm hanging in there because of you folks who do keep donating. So thank you very much. See you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye.